Welcome back to Let's Talk Harlingen. I'm Mayor Norma Sepulveda.
And I'm Cassandra Concilio.
We're here to keep you updated, informed, and connected to your city.
Let's get into it.
And in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Harlingen. I'm Mayor Norma Sepulveda, and today it is just me and you. We are doing our commission recap. My co-host Cassandra is out at a work conference, so we're going to try to make this just as quick as possible for you. Our commission recap is designed so that way you don't have to sit into our meetings, which this meeting for this week was over 5 hours. So what I'm going to try to do here is get through our agenda quickly, give you the information that you need to know so that way you know what's going on over at City Hall. So at every meeting, we have a pet of the week. And this week, we had our pet of the week is Zara. Zara has been over at the shelter since late August. She's an adorable pet. She's scheduled for her to be spayed, and she is up for adoption. And we encourage everybody to go out and go check out Zara and all her buddies, and hopefully we can get her adopted. Also, what we did this at this commission meeting, we had a proclamation proclaiming Fire Prevention Week. And as you can see, we had the fire department come out, and we just want to ensure that we are educating our community on the importance of fire safety. And moving right along on our consent agenda, we've already discussed before that consent agenda items are items that are routine business, but every once in a while, it's important to kind of pick out a few and really look at them because they've got great information that is important for our community. And so on the top of the consent agenda items is 7A, and that is consideration and possible action to authorize our city manager to accept a grant. And this grant is from Petco. This is really important. It's $20,000, and it's important to know that this is going to help us continue our spay and neuter, affordable cost spay and neuter program that got kicked off on October 1st. We announced that in September, and in October, we already had over 120 applicants. And so it exhausted all of the funds. But thankfully, we have this additional grant that we're going to be able to continue that momentum. So we're really excited about that. Please follow the Harlingen Animal Shelter page where you can get all of the information on how you can sign up your pups and cats. Also on our consent agenda, we have consideration and action to approve the installation of speed humps. This, of course, you're either on one side or the other. You love them or you hate them. But I want you to know this. Every time there's a speed hump, it isn't just done, willy-nilly. What happens is we get requests. And in this commission meeting, we had the request for the 200 block of Louisiana and the 13 and 1400 block of South G Street, Hale Avenue between New Hampshire and Ed Carey Drive. So basically, the folks in the neighborhood get a petition together and say, hey, we really need a speed hump. We're noticing high levels of traffic. There's safety concerns. And then once that request is submitted either through the commissioner or through our app, then city staff goes out there and does a study to ensure that in reality, there is a need for it based on the traffic. And so once that study is complete, there's notification. So if it came from an individual on the app, then they'll get a response on the result of that study, or if it is through a petition from several neighbors, and usually the commissioner will reach out to those individuals to let them know whether it was approved or denied based on the study. So understand, we get it. I see you, Harlingen. I'm one of those. I'm not in favor of speed humps, but I do want to ensure that if you want one, that you have the right to be able to have one in your neighborhood. I recognize the need for them, but aesthetically, they're not the best thing on our streets, but we want to be a community first type of government. And so if it's something that you want, we will ensure that that is what we do for you should the study result in your favor. So moving on our agenda, we didn't have any public hearings this time, but we did have multiple action items. One item in particular, item 10B, this was consideration and possible action to approve a variance to the City of Harlingen Code of Ordinances to allow one instead of two required entrances for a proposed development. Now, this, if you go and you watch the meeting, and we're going to ensure that if you are watching this on Facebook, that we have a link in the comments to the actual meeting so you can see the full conversation and dialogue. This is something that took the commission quite a bit of time to kind of really decide how we wanted to move forward on it. This is a development, a proposed development on the southwest side of town over on Morris Road. And so here you can see that the issue was that this development was having issues with access points. So our ordinance requires that there be at least two access points and that they are 1,500 feet apart. And so that's really important when we're looking at what is being proposed. So being proposed is two access points at 160 feet apart. And so, of course, that raises a lot of concerns. And for me, the biggest concern was public safety. Should there be an issue? Should our fire department need to get in? Our police department, STEC? Should there be an emergency? Should there be, streets blocked off? How is that going to ensure that we're protecting those future home buyers in that development? And so there's a lot of conversation on it. Our planning department had recommended approval. And when I asked in the meeting, what was the reason for this recommendation? Because we rely on staff and, of course, the Planning and Zoning Board to really dig deep. And before it gets to us, there's a lot of work that's done, and before it gets to us. And so it seemed to me that the recommendation was coming from the fact that they were really landlocked and couldn't have additional access points. And so I really don't want to be a government that is approving certain variance requests because there's no other way, right? And if we can find another way would be better in this instance, in my view, because we need to ensure that the developers have done their due diligence and ensuring that really there is no other way. So we really just want, to make sure that before we move forward, that we're doing responsibly and that we are taking care of homeowners in our community, and public safety is paramount. And so I am happy that we tabled this item. Hopefully it comes back to us and we can get to a yes, but in a way that we'll feel comfortable that we're doing right by Harlingen. So it looks like I kind of passed on our staff reports and discussion items. And so one of the things I want to circle back. So if you're following along on your agenda, this is item 8. We had a staff report, a presentation by Police Chief Alviar on the 2025 Harlingen crime statistics. So if you have never seen a commission meeting on YouTube, I encourage you to do that. We obviously, first and foremost, we want you to come to our meetings. And if you're not able to come to our meetings because we know life gets in the way, you can always go to YouTube, and it's laid out nicely where you can go through the agenda, click on what you want to view, and that way you don't have to kind of go through 5 hours of a commission meeting to get to the point that you want. So you could always look at your agenda, see what the points of interest are, which is the kind of the idea of these commission recaps. So that way you can see, hey, I want to get more information about this specific topic, then you can go and check that out. So I encourage you to go look at the report from Police Chief Alviad. I'll just kind of give you the highlights. This is covering the first part of 2025, and we know that Chief Alviad has been with the department for decades, and he is really dedicated in changing really the mission of the fire department to go back to the basics and to be a crime fighting department. And so what we have seen is that it's working. When you look at all of the different statistics that were presented yesterday, the one that stands out the most is that crime in the city of Harlingen is down by 17%. And of course, that is what we want to see. We did see a slight increase, or an increase in fires in our community, and that was the only category where it was an increase. But he did mention that these were 3 events that increased that percentage. But aside from that, all other crimes within the city are down by 17%. And of course, we're working very closely with our fire department to get these, make sure that these fires are fully investigated and ensuring that there isn't any foul play in these fires. In addition, we saw that compared to this time last year, traffic stops are up by 67%. And I know you may be thinking, okay, do we want them pulling people over in the city? What is the purpose behind it? I've had multiple conversations with the chief, and this really is a way for them to keep our cities, streets safe. It serves as a deterrent. When you see our police officers out in the street, I know that you've been driving down the street and you see a police car, and automatically you are making sure that you're doing everything right, right? You put your blinker on, you're going the speed limit, you got your seatbelt on, you're doing everything right because you don't want to get pulled over. And that's the kind of drivers we want in our community to keep our families safe. And so their presence alone on the streets is really helping. But on top of that, these traffic stops, they're doing this so that way they know what's going on. They know what's going on and they can conduct a traffic stop. If it is something that they can address with a warning, we heard last night that that's what they're doing. They give more warnings than they do actual tickets, but it's the communication that is happening during these traffic stops that's really leading to additional arrest. And so we have seen an increase in those traffic stops. We see a direct correlation to crime down in our community. So it's just a phenomenal presentation. Encourage you. There's a crime suppression unit, lots of good information. Please, if you have the time, go check out the full entire report. Now, moving back down over to our ordinances that we have on the agenda, another one for your consideration I think is important is going to be item 10C. Here we have consideration and possible action to authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with Schneider Electric with revisions requested. So this is an item put on by the Public Works Department, and we've had multiple meetings covering this item. And so this was kind of they came back to us with certain questions that the commission had to see if we want to move forward with this or not. So just to kind of, as way of background, the city of Harlingen has been evaluating opportunities to address deferred maintenance and rising operational costs across multiple city facilities. So Schneider Electric has presented a comprehensive design build solution that modernizes building systems, improving energy efficiency, and reducing the long-term cost. So what does that mean? This project is going to include upgrades to our HVAC, roofing, lighting, electrical infrastructure, and basically throughout all the major city facilities such as City Hall, our fire department, police department, public library, every department, and all of our parks also. And really what we're looking at is to try to see if we can be more efficient, more modern in our facilities, and ultimately generate savings that we anticipate to be about $95,000 to $115,000 annually, which adds up to about $3.5 million over 20 years. So this is significant. The commission is really evaluating on how we can cut costs. We have done this in all areas within the city, and this is just another measure for us to be able to try to stretch every dollar to ensure that we are providing exceptional services to our community and that we are being good stewards, right, of course, of taxpayer dollars. And so if we can reduce those costs, that's what this is about. And so we have two options before us. One of them is self-funded, meaning we aren't going to it's really not going to cost us anything, and we get to reap the savings. But then we have to decide which buildings and which parks and which areas of town that we're going to concentrate on. If we want a comprehensive one, then there is an additional potential cost. But right now, what we're doing is we're authorizing the city manager to move forward with this, and we are still kind of considering both options to see which one works best for the city. But know this, that we are focused on doing our best to save costs and to ensure that we are keeping up with what's needed in all of our buildings. So moving right along, we got several items on our agenda in reference to the EDC. If you want to go through those individually, again, go take a look at the entire meeting. But just so that you know, we did have consideration and possible action to authorize the EDC to enter into a contract with Retail Strategies for retail recruitment and consulting services. That was item E on our ordinances, 10E. And so this is really important and important for the community This presentation was first presented to the board, the Harlingen EDC board. So I attended that meeting so I could specifically see exactly how this was going to be implemented in our community. And so the EDC board unanimously approved this contract, and then it came to us to recommended for approval so that they can move forward with it. There used to be a different agency that the EDC worked with, and I agree with them that we didn't feel that we were getting the best bang for our buck, right? We want to ensure that we have working with a firm that's working with the city and its needs, and really fulfilling kind of the needs of the community. We want to make sure that they feel heard. We hear you all the time, specific retailers that you want in our community, whether it be dining, fine dining, grocers, retail in terms of clothing and shopping and all of those great things that really improve the quality of life of our community. And so I'm excited about having this opportunity for the EDC to really work with this new firm to really, just level up what's offered here in Harlingen. And we also approved, they have the Revitalize Harlingen program, the funding for this fiscal year. And this is something I'm really passionate about. Many of you know that this was something that was really important to me. And so this is something that I pushed as soon as I came on board as your mayor. And it was nice to see that have been able to consistently be able to help our entrepreneurs and our small business owners to really improve their facade. So if you don't know what this is it's a grant program that up to $10,000 EDC will match if you want to make improvements to your facade. So that is what is here. I think with this program, they've given over $200,000 over the last 3 years to small businesses wanting to improve their curb appeal at their businesses, and it's really turned into an investment of over, I think, nearly $2 million here in the city of Harlingen. So it's a fantastic program. Also, through the EDC, there was a presentation and possible action to approve funding for Boost Harlingen, which is a new small business marketing matching grant program developed by the Small Business Advisory Committee of the Harlingen EDC. Again, this is going towards helping small businesses in our community. We have a small business committee, a board that is comprised of small business owners. They really get together once a month and brainstorm on how we can help small business owners. And this is comes from those brainstorming sessions that they've had and all the great work that they do in our community. Also, we took action to approve their fiscal year 2026 annual work plan. So all of that is available over on YouTube. Encourage you to go take a look at that if you have more questions. And also remember that the full agenda and the attachments are always uploaded to the City of Harlingen website, where you can get more information there too. And before we move on and we wrap up on the EDC stuff, it seems that I I glanced over the item 10D, which is something that was tabled at the last commission meeting. And if you remember during our last commission recap, we talked about this. There is an organization, VITA, which stands for Valley Initiative for Development and Advancement. This nonprofit does phenomenal work. They really help students, individuals that are not in the workforce, that need training so that they can get back into the workforce and just really help their family succeed, right? And so this program, the EDC has partnered with them, and over the last 3 years have allocated $50,000 each year to this program. So it was tabled at the last meeting because, as I mentioned in the recap and I mentioned at the last commission meeting, was that I had some questions regarding the allocation of the funding, and we didn't really know exactly how that, what that breakdown looked like. We had somewhat of an idea, and one thing that stood out to me was that there was a 15% allocation, which was about $7,500 of the $50,000 that was going to admin fees. And so my question was, what exactly does that mean? And so it got tabled along with, I know Commissioner Lopez had questions regarding what was the outcome for the students and where were they placed and how is this really impacting the student? Are they getting placed in good, high paying jobs? And so that came off the table. We had a further discussion. Folks from VITA came to answer questions. And so I asked those questions, and kind of this is what we found out. Uh, the breakdown, the $50,000, 50% of the funding went to support services, which in translation, from what I gathered, was that goes directly to the student, whether it be childcare, transportation, help with books, help with tuition, and that's what that allocation was for. Then you had about 35%, which went to program case managers. So these, from what I understood from the presentation yesterday, are individual case managers. Each case manager is assigned, roughly 80 to 100 students, and they are housed at different schools. So the student may be at UTRGV or at TSDC or some other institution, and their case managers are there to kind of what they said. I think it was handhold and guide them through the process. And so that's what that was for. And then 15% was for admin, the folks that are paid administrative costs like your payroll and the CEO and other folks that really help the organization function. And so I really had asked this question, and I shared this at the last recap, is that, you know, the city of Harlingen went over to the Texas Veterans Commission and asked for assistance for our veterans. And that's where I spent probably 6 hours just sitting there waiting to be called so that I could speak in public comment to advocate for funding for Harlingen. And so one of the things that we did in our application for the funding is that we indicated that 100% of the grant funds would go directly to our veterans and that we would absorb all costs for the implementation of the funding for the staff that's going to be working with the veterans. All of those costs the city would absorb, and all of the funds that we were beneficiaries of would go directly to our veterans. And so we were successful in getting $900,000 of funding. When I was in the meeting, and Commissioner Kinsley went with me and Commissioner Bettis, we were just listening to see. We ended up with an additional 100,000, if I remember correctly, by waiting towards the very end when all of the monies had been allocated and then there was money left over. And that money left over was going to be provided to either nonprofits or city governments, county governments, depending on the need. And so when they came to Harlingen, they provided us additional funding. And I believe that's because they had gone through different organizations where there was a high percentage of admin fee. And they had this whole discussion amongst the commission that they wanted their funds to go directly to the veterans. And so when they had those additional funds, they allocated it to organizations and cities and counties and things of that nature that were going to be able to provide that funding. So what I asked for is this, of course, was passed unanimously by the commission. We want to continue the work. We know that VITA does great work, but in the future, my suggestion to the EDC was to really look to see if we could have some restricted funding in terms of the monies that are going to be allocated or contributed to VITA. So that way more of what is being provided goes directly to students and we can serve more people. All right, and moving on, we had our last item for the ordinances was item I, consideration and possible action to authorize the city manager to award a construction contract with SLR Contractors for Dixieland Park basketball court improvement. And so again, encourage you to go check out the video so you can see the full presentation. We're excited about this. This is going to provide a very much needed a covered basketball court over at Dixieland Park. That is in District 5. I know Commissioner Bettis advocated for this addition to the park because it is something that the community asked for. It is so hot outside most of the time here year round, right? We're, struggling in these heat and excessive temperatures, and to keep our kids safe and make sure that it's an enjoyable experience, we went ahead and approved this. This is going to be funding through the CDBG department, meaning this is not going to be taxpayer funded. This is a federal grant program that helps with quality of life improvements. And so that's what this is going to do. And we're real excited about the opportunity to provide this. And of course, it is in District 5, but obviously open to the entire city. And we can't wait to be there for the ribbon cutting for this one as well. And that is it, Harlingen. We went through the agenda. I hope you enjoyed this episode of our commission recap. We will be back next week with a very special episode. Not going to give you any of the details, so that way you can be surprised, but I'm sure that the city departments will do their little sneak peeks at what's to come, but it's going to be a great one, so I hope to see you then. That's it for this episode of Let's Talk Harlingen.
If you like what you heard today, make sure to subscribe on our YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.
We've got more conversations coming your way.
Let's talk again soon, Harlingen.